welcome back to Brothers Talk, and this is F1 Talk. We've just had the first race of the season in Australia, so let's get straight into it. So the only place we can begin really is with Oscar. Poor Oscar, what a start to the season, unbelievable. I mean, there is that sort of Australian curse, I think, that no Australian driver's ever finished on the podium, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, come on. He didn't even make the grid. Trying to decide what happened, obviously, McLaren haven't said anything at this stage. What it seems like is, obviously, he's got cold tyres. He's had sort of like a torque spike, I think they've called it. So obviously just a boost of power coming around the corner. He's at the curb, cold tyres, bit of driver error included as well. It's probably a bit of everything, and he's had a nightmare. He hasn't even made the grid. So that's Piastri out before the lights go green, unfortunately. So let's talk about the starts then. So before the lights turned green, we heard Russell come over the radio and say that he had no battery. So we knew he was going to struggle. We also knew, or thought we knew, that the Ferraris were going to get off the line quick because we saw that in testing. So what happened? Leclerc went flying. He got into the first corner in the lead. Russell second. Kimi had a bad start. Hamilton had an absolute flyer. Probably had a bit too much boost and ran a touch wide in turn one, which put him on the back foot. Lost a couple of places because he was in third at that point. He made them back up on the first lap and finished the first lap in third. So the front three were Leclerc, Russell and Hamilton. And that's how the race was for the next sort of 10 or so laps. Now the lead changed hands, I think 7 times within those first 10 laps or so. Leclerc and Russell battling it out, and I mean, I don't know if it felt a little bit of a false overtaking, because obviously the drivers have got to do the overtaking, the battling, and it's wheel-to-wheel combat, and we love to see that, and that is what we want to see. However, I felt like one driver would use the boost and overtake, and then the other driver would have maybe a touch of boost left or recharge quicker and then get the overtake in. So was it a bit false? It's tricky to say really. It felt it, but whether that's just because it's new, we're not used to that yet, and that's just how the racing is going to be. But it gave us overtakes. The stat I've seen after the race, just to sort of touch on that, the 2025 Australian Grand Prix had 45 overtakes. The 2026 Australian Grand Prix had 120 overtakes. Now that's an incredible stat, that is. And as racing fans, that is what we want to see. We want to see overtaking, we want to see battling on track. But we don't want to see false overtaking. We don't want seeing cars with no battery and just tunneling round and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know at this stage. Like I say, it made for an exciting race because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know who was going to finish, who was going to have reliability issues. We didn't know how the drivers were going to handle the cars, all that. So that did make it interesting. So we'll see in China. But obviously, I've jumped the gun a little bit there. We've still got a bit of race to analyse here. We had a VSC come out and around about lap 11-12, where the Mercedes pitted and the Ferrari stayed out. Now, could that prove to be costly? We'll find out. Now, Hamilton come on the radio a couple of times saying that they should have pitted, Ferrari should have pitted. They had another opportunity around about lap 21, 22, another VSC come out, but the Ferraris probably just missed the pit entrance. They were a little bit late for the call on that one, so that probably wasn't a viable option. It wasn't as long as a VSC this time, but I mean, their original game plan was one stop. Mercedes obviously were going on a two stop, or probably made that decision early to switch for a two stop. So yeah, Ferrari stuck to the guns and carried on. Now it did mean that the Mercedes were only about, well, Russell was about 9 seconds behind in catching. Obviously he's on fresher tyres. Ferraris are nursing the mediums at that point, but they did have decent tyre deg. They weren't going off a cliff, which is good to see. But the battle was on really at that point then. So let's talk about the pace of Mercedes and Ferrari and so on. So, I mean, as we know, Mercedes, we thought they were going to be the quickest in testing, and qualifying obviously cemented that. They were a class above the others in qualifying in single lap pace. In race pace, Ferrari kept up with them really. Obviously they were matching times. I think Mercedes are probably a little bit kinder on the tyres from what we saw. They pitted on lap 12 and went to the end. Ferrari didn't want to take that risk, so I think Mercedes definitely the quickest, but Ferrari is living with them, which is good. It'd have been nice to see how it would have fared if they were a little bit closer together, because it didn't seem like Leclerc could break that 9 second mark to Kimi after the pits and everything. So we'll see how that unfolds as races go on. Let's talk about the McLaren and Red Bull pace. Obviously they were the bench setters last season by an absolute country mile, but McLaren have looked a little bit out of sorts. Lando doesn't seem to be 100% happy with the car, with the performance, with the handling compared to how it was last year, because he had obviously such an incredible car. But it seemed like in the second part of the race, he managed to pick up the pace. So whether that was a combination of obviously the tyre change, lower fuel, sort of a lighter car, just sort of suit him a little bit better, because he did keep Max behind him, which was we didn't expect that when Max was catching him when the pit stops happened. He was sort of second and a half, 2 seconds behind. I think everyone thought Max was going to get him because he did look quick, but he kept him behind, which is fair play. So maybe they've, like I say, found a little bit of performance, or it was just them conditions at the time suited the McLaren a little bit more than earlier on in the race and in qualifying. With regards to Red Bull, obviously Max started from pretty much back of the grid after the accident on his first flying lap in Q1 yesterday, but he come through the field well, which is what we pretty much expected. We know what Max is capable of. We assumed the Red Bull is a decent car as well. And obviously there's going to be some slow not back markers, but slow cars towards the back of the grid anyway. So we knew Max was going to get going, which he did. He made light work of some of the cars earlier on. And then he had sort of that bit of not much of a battle with Lando, unfortunately. They were close. Max was catching him, but just couldn't get the overtake done. They never really chucked a move on him. There wasn't really that opportunity. But again, it seems like Red Bull do have a bit of a car there. Isaac Hadjar, obviously, he went out, no fault of his own. Qualified well, could have been running well. Would he have sort of upset the Ferrari and Mercedes at any point? Would he have altered strategies if he was in the mix? Maybe so. So it would be interesting to put the standings here now, just so we can see where everyone finished. So as we can see, Hülkenberg unable to start due to mechanical failure. Piastri crashed on the way to the grid. Hadjar unfortunately had engine failure on lap 10, and Bottas had engine failure on lap 15. Alonso then pitted due to an issue, come back out, did a few laps but didn't finish the race, and Stroll finished 15 laps down as well. Again, couldn't finish the race. As we know, the Aston Martins were struggling. Perez in the Cadillac finished 16th, last of the runners. Sainz 15th in the Williams, struggled with pace this weekend. Colapinto in the Alpine 14th, Lawson 13th, Albon 12th, and Ocon just missing out in the Haas at 11th for a point. Now here's your top 10. Gasly 10th, Bortoleto with a great drive and picking up Audi's first points. Lindblad in 8th, picking up his first points for RB. That did not look like a rookie drive. Incredible performance today. Behrman finishing 7th for Haas. Another great drive for him. Verstappen 6th, just beaten by Norris, who finished 5th. Hamilton 4th, just missing out on his first podium for Ferrari, but a great drive today from him. And he probably looked quicker of the two Ferrari drivers, if we're being honest. And then Leclerc gained his podium today. Good drive from him. Kimi Antonelli finishing 2nd. Good recovery drive from him after a poor start. But Russell, first win of the season, title favourite, looking good for Mercedes. Now on to the next race, and it's China and sprint weekend, which we know that brings a bit of jeopardy. We know it can mix up the standings a little bit because there's less practice, which obviously these drivers and the cars, teams, they've had less practice, obviously, because it's a brand new regulation, so they haven't done a lot of testing in this. They are new cars, they're still getting to grips, still understanding them, so that could be a crazy weekend. Obviously, we know who the potential quick ones are, but if they haven't got the car dialed in going into the sprint, then let's see what happens. But it's exciting. We've got a whole new start to the F1. I think it will be a good season. Like I say, I think everyone will have certain frustrations. One thing I wanted to mention is I think the average fan, the person who just tunes in as the formation lap is taking place and haven't watched any build-up, I think they are going to be confused with this. I think they won't understand a lot what's going on. I think they'll maybe some of the terminology, super clipping and all this kind of rubbish. There's nothing super about it. You're slowing down before on the straight. You're downshifting on a straight. I mean, that's absolutely insane. So for me, like I say, it's still very early days. Obviously, we're still getting to grips with it. I don't want to put too much of a negative spin on it at this stage. I want sort of some races play out, but like I say, I don't like seeing cars slowing down on the straight. I want to see, qualifying didn't feel like the cars were being flat out. I felt like they were holding something back, and considering they were 3.5 seconds slower than last year, then they clearly are. But we'll see. Like I say, don't put too much negativity on it. It's the first race of the season, and it was good. We had a lot of excitement on that, so there we go. But guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.